Hey there guys, how's it going for today? In today's video, I'm doing a deck tech of my new 4-color Omnath Locus of Creation deck. Alright guys, we're getting into it. Just a little bit of an explanation before I get along and going on to actually showing you what I'm doing with the deck and whatnot. This is a deck that's sort of formed out of the fact that I had several decks that, and I think I sort of talked about this before in one video here or there, whatever. But anyway, I had 4 or so decks, or really 3 or so decks that were basically all the same. They were landfall stroke token generating decks. And then I was building like either a 3rd or a 4th deck. And I just sort of stopped myself and went, wait a minute, why am I building this, like 3rd or 4th deck that is basically exactly the same as like the other ones? It's like, well, that's what I like, again, token generation, and I really like the landfall thing, and I was just like, well, that's cool, and that's what I want to do. But I sort of looked at it for a second, and I took a step back and was like, well, instead of building like 3 or 4 decks that are all the same, and like if I play people, it's like, well, here I am playing basically the same deck as I just played, or whatever. I just play out another deck that is another landfall tokens deck. It's just like, it's just in different colors. Here's my Selesnya one, here's my Simic one, and I was building a Gruul one, or starting to build a Gruul one. So I was like, well, at that point, like, well, what's the difference between me building this and and the other 2 that I already had? Like, it was dumb to me, and I just sort of realized, this is silly. Like, why am I building these? Like I wanted to build this deck, but these like other decks. But again, I was just like, well, what's the point? What's the difference between the other decks again? So I just decided, well, instead of like having these 3 or whatever decks that I would have, instead just like jam everything together, jam it all into one deck, and play what I really like. Just play all the good cards that I think I want to play in this deck. And I was like, oh, okay, well, cool. I have to play 4-color Omnath to play, all my stuff that I really want to play. I want to really play all this token stuff. And again, that's maybe not the most optimal way to play it or whatnot, like not the most combo-centric, like go-off way. There are some combos, and certainly some new cards that we'll talk about in the video in a bit, or further into the video anyway. But anyway, I really wanted to go down the token route as much as possible, which you'll see in the video as we go along. So yeah, let's just get right into it. Let's use good old EDH Rec to get some of the cards from this deck and have a look at what I'm doing with this deck, because I think EDH Rec has 90% of the cards. It's not 100%. But like, it has most of the good cards that are really in this deck that I've put in it, and I have changed it a little bit, as I sort of said, maybe, or maybe I haven't, I don't remember now, since I've sort of started playing it a little bit. I really wanted this one, I think, to be my most powerful deck, and I just went, you know what, that's cool with me, because it does seem like a powerful commander, and it is very value engineer. I'm not running any of these combos whatsoever. I'm not running, well, it's not to say that I'm not running any combos specifically, but it's like not a very clear, like, specific combo per se. Like, there are things that will work together as if it's a combo, but it's not like it's always guaranteed to happen or whatnot. So there's things that will work together, but again, for the most part, it's all just like value cards that do good stuff, draw me cards, play me more lands, things like that. Let me play creatures, all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's basically what we're doing. Augur of Autumn, great new card from the Midnight Hunt set. Amazing, so good. It's so easy to turn on Coven with this thing. Lets you play lands from the top. You don't have to reveal them. which is one of those things you don't have to reveal your cards. I like the Gruul commander that does basically the same thing, but she just buffs herself up, so I didn't really like her that much in this deck. When I sort of thought about putting it in, I thought, oh yeah, looking at the top card and being able to play lands is nice, but it's a very tight list as well. So it's one of those things, even when you're not doing all these combo things, or you're not doing like some of the burn damage stuff that I could be doing, like even then it's a very tight list. Like there's some space in there for some cards, but for the most part, you know, again, it's an extremely tight list that, you know, well, you could only cut some things from here and there, so it's very hard to cut anything or to put anything in at a certain point. Gretchen's pretty good. It's a budget Thrasios to a degree. I also have Thrasios in this deck. I don't know whether it's going to be listed here in a minute, but yeah, I have this in here. If you haven't got a land in hand, it's fine. If you do, it's still fine, especially if you're playing your second land drop. If you have got, you know, that ability to get Omnath's mana, then this sort of was for free and drew you an extra card, and then you can do something else with your mana, so that's pretty darn good. Playing that extra land is really worth it, and this being on another 2-drop, like, is pretty good. So yeah, it's well worth it. I don't like Splendid Reclamation. Like, if we were playing a lot more fetch lands, and I mean a lot more fetch lands, then I could see using it, definitely. It's really good when you have a lot of fetch lands, but I don't really have that many for this deck. At least right now, I have like Terramorphic Expanse and Evolving Worlds and Fabled Passage and one real fetch, but other than that, I don't have any other ones. Lotus Cobra, was a little bit cold on Lotus Cobra, but Lotus Cobra just making extra mana, even if it's just temporary mana, I don't like the fact that it's temporary mana, because sometimes you're just like, well, what can I do with it? And that's the thing. It's like, well, you always need things to do with it, which means you always need cards, and you always need spells. So, you know, like, as long as you keep cards and keep spells coming, you know, you'll always have something to do with that mana. So everything's got to be replacing itself when you've got things like this, or you've got to be really early on to set up and things like that. So it's really good like that. Azusa, I've got that in there because Azusa's pretty good. I'm a little bit cold on her, but when you've got things that let you play lands from the graveyard, even though, again, I don't have that many fetches or whatnot, she's really good in that regard. And if you just so happen to have a handful of lands, you just dump them, and then, you know, after she comes out, and you just, like, start going to town. I didn't like Mina and Den, though I did have it in there because it was fairly budget, and I thought, oh, yeah, that's fine. But I took it out for other cards because they were more effective at sort of, you know, doing more of what I wanted to do. Avenger of Zendikar is really great. You know, it's one of the sort of finishes of the deck where you just, like, go into Avenger and, like then, like, Crater Hoof or whatever and just, like, kill everyone or whatever. That new card, from Crimson Vow, the dinosaur dude, the 7-mana dude that's being released in that set. I'm pretty sure I'm putting that dude in here. But where exactly what I'm taking out, I'm actually thinking about taking Firelath out. Firelath's okay. Basically the same thing as Avenger of Zendikar, but only for basics. And I am running a lot more basics in this deck than maybe what I should be. But I like running a lot of basics in decks like this, or at least in these sort of decks, because you can fetch out basics pretty easily with a lot of your effects, so that's good. But I also want to be able to get my basics when I need them. But I do want more duels. But the problem is, there's not enough duels that, you know, come in untapped that are, you know, on a fairly decent budget that I could put in. I've already got the shots in there, so it's like, well, what am I going to do? Tadiova, obviously very good in this deck for a reason. Just draw more cards when you play lands. Really great. Scoot Swarm's just insane because it's Scoot Swarm and it makes a billion bugs. Ancient Green Warden doubles up your landfalls, lets you play lands from the graveyard. Just a 5/7 reach as well. That's really hard for people to get through. Farseek, yeah, I got that in the deck. AC, I got this in the deck. It's really good as well. Just letting you play extra lands, drawing you extra cards, all that good stuff. Just a big 5/5 as well. I've got Timeless Provisioner in this deck, and I've got Swords to Plowshares. Timeless Provisioner is really good because, unlike Lotus Cobra, which I was like iffy on, it makes permanent mana, which means you just like store up all your mana whenever you need it. Because sometimes you're just like, well, I don't quite have the mana to do what I need to do, but if I have like 3 or 4 of that mana, like from this turn, you know, stick around till next turn, then I will, you know, like that's really good. So, yep, that was in there. I liked Risen Reef, even though there's not a lot of elementals. There's still a fair few elementals. Like, I think it counted that there was like 7 or 8 elementals. So I thought, oh, it's good enough on its own. And then there's a bunch of elementals in the deck, and plus our commander's an elemental. So I thought, you know, our commander can die, and its effect is pretty good. So yeah, I put that in. Morag, I like Morag. Though it can be a little bit like, well, do we actually need the extra combats, or do we just need one combat to kill? But that's the thing, like, sometimes you do need those extra combats because you can kill one person or maybe 2 people, but not the third. And then if you actually put this down and then say, oh, okay, cool, I'm going to have an extra combat after this, then it's just like, oh, okay, cool, game's over. So it really does come in clutch in certain situations like that. Sometimes you don't want to 100% commit to that, but there's always like situations where it's like, dude, this game's been going for like nearly 2 hours or whatever. It's time to end it. Come on, like let's just end it. So yeah, like I like that for like when it's time to be like, oh yeah, push the button. I got Sakura Tribe-Elder in here. Obviously, Sakura Tribe-Elder is pretty good. Shire's in here because makes everything a land in addition to its other types. So whenever we play a creature, now we're playing a land as well, so it triggers its own landfall effects. Oh yeah, Rada, I couldn't think of her name. I would love to put an Oracle of Mordai in here, but one of the big things about Oracle is that you have to reveal the land, unlike Rada and unlike Augur of Autumn, which I don't like, because then you're revealing cards to your opponents that you don't want them to know that you've got in your hands. You don't want them to know you've got like Avenger of Zendikar or a Crater Hoof or whatever. You've got this or you've got that or whatever kill spell you've got in the deck. So yeah, you don't want them to let them know that. As I said, Firelef is in this deck for now, but I think I'll probably take him out. I love Emeria Angel. Like, just getting 50 flyers suddenly out of nowhere is just like great and things like that. It's not literally you get that many, but you can get so many flyers so quickly with this thing, and so many people just don't run enough flyers, so you just like overwhelm them with your flying horde of birds. So yeah, that takes over games pretty easily. I love Tireless Tracker as well. Just getting us clues, you know, drawing us cards, extra cards for playing lands, which is really good. Spring Bloom Druid just makes us get a double landfall, essentially, which is, you know, what it's really there for. But it's decent ramp at 3 if we really need it. So, yep, that's there. Eternal Witness. You need an Eternal Witness in a lot of these decks. You need some sort of like recursion and stuff like that. Kadama of the East Tree, just insane in this style of deck because you make a Scoot Swarm or you make any token and then you can play a land, and then because you play a land you make more tokens, and then because you made more tokens you can play more lands, so it just snowballs so quickly, so easily, with so many other things. So yeah, it's really great. Like I said, I'm not running any of these like deals damage creatures and whatnot. That's just a choice that I decided to make because I want to go down the I make tokens route, and like with Kadama and with so many other little synergies that are in the deck, it's one of those things where I really wanted to go down that route. Like I could go down the more spiky route and just like go and use cards like this, but to me, I want to overwhelm the board with tokens and things like that. I don't want to just play these things that are pinging everyone for damage. It's just not the style I like, but it's certainly a much more like competitive style, I guess. So that's just me, where I'm just like, yes, this is the level at which I want my deck. I want it to be high and powerful because this one is fairly powerful, or can be, but I don't want it to max out too much. I've got Cosma in the deck because, again, just draws cards when you play land, essentially. There's so many good cards in this deck. Again, like some people play like a lot of really good cards like Aboon and things like that. Maluku's just crazy in this deck. You just bounce lands to your hand. You play more lands with Kadama because you made a token and whatnot. You just keep making as many tokens as you want, whatnot. Marja, really good. As well, as I said, love the token stuff. That's the way I wanted to go with this deck. So yeah, I decided to put that in there. There's so many options. That's the thing. Like you'll quickly find that when you're building a deck. Oh yeah, I've got a Cradle. But yeah, like as I said, there's just so much stuff that you cram into decks like this that you'll quickly be like, oh geez, what am I going to do? There's so much options. I got Beast Within. Absolutely, Beast Within's pretty good. Just killing anything is really good for 3. We've got Generous Gift. Generous Gift's really good as well. Again, killing anything for 3. I've even got Chaos Warp in here. I haven't got Nature's Claim, though. I don't know whether I'll really want a Nature's Claim. Maybe I do want a Nature's Claim instead of whatever the Return to Nature that I've got in here. I just threw it in because I so happened to have it. And I thought, I need a little bit more Graveyard Hate at the time. So I just threw it in and didn't really think about it. But now I've got a little bit more Graveyard Hate that I think probably don't really need it, so I might swap that out in a minute or whatever. Yeah, Chaos Warp. There's Chaos Warp. I like Valakut Awakening, not just because it's a land on one side, and I like any of these MDSVs, especially in a deck like this where you need lots of lands, but as a spell as well. Like, it's a self-wheel. But when you just need to find very specific cards, sometimes it can really be worth it just to discard certain cards or whatnot. Put them at the bottom, whatever. Same thing, essentially you're getting them out of your hand and just drawing a whole bunch of cards to try to find what you need. So, yeah, like you just need that token generator or that thing that, or your Kadama or something. You just need those things that you can actually go, okay, now I can just kill people. Now I can just do what I need to do to win the game at a certain point. So it's really useful like that. Don't know how many sorcerers we're going to talk about, but I've certainly got 3 Visits in Nature's Law. Sky Shroud can be good, but like I always find that it's just too much mana, even though it refunds you 2 mana if you've got commander out, it sort of refunds you all the mana. So, but again, I just don't like it because, again, I want most of the stuff to be in here to be creatures. Balagad Recovery is just really good. You can't beat that. So it's just one of those things. But again, it's a land on one side, spell on the other. So if I really need the land, I've still got it. You know, like again. So there's like multiple purposes to a lot of the cards that are in here. I've got Undo Inversion. Undo Inversion is really good. Especially since it's a land as well. So yeah, I run that. Used to like Search for Tomorrow, actually. Search for Tomorrow used to be pretty darn clutch, actually, because you just suspend it for 1 mana on turn 1, though, so that's really good. So yeah, but yeah, like, when you don't suspend it on turn 1 for 1, it's not nearly as good. People are running a lot of stuff in like these decks, and this is what I mean by saying these decks get crowded very quickly and very easily because there's just so many options and so much good stuff that you can run. That's the thing about going into so many colors, and I might talk about this a bit more in another video, but you know, once you get into more colors, it starts becoming harder and harder to, you know, like justify things. I used to actually have Valakut Exploration in this deck. It's all right, but the thing is, you've got to exile them, and if you don't cast them right away, they just go to the graveyard. It does ping everybody or all your opponents for a damage, but I just don't find it's worth it. Like, even if you get 3 or 4 things exiled, it's just one of those cards that you're now having to build your deck around a little bit more too much. So I just took it out because it's just like, no, I just don't want to have to deal with having to figure out how I can cast the things from the temporary zone, and I don't want to mill them. I always want to have them in hand or whatnot. So it is a good card for certain decks, certainly, but I just don't like it for this deck. But certainly I know some other people really like it because you can just like make a whole bunch of mana and you just like dump it into whatever's there and you don't really care. But like, to me, I find that it breaks up my strategy. So I put the Abundance in here because a lot of the cards that are already in the deck are really good with it already. Plus the new card basically just combos with it, so it's really good for what I want to do. I just name land when I have my setup ready, and I just get all the lands. So it's really good. Like, if you have Tadiova and Kadama, you just name land when you've played a land, draw a land, play the land, draw a land, play a land, draw a land, find all your lands. You know, they all enter untapped, basically, and then just you kill everyone, you know, so things like that. AC, same thing. There's a few other cards that it already does work with, so I thought, it is worth it, not just outside of the combo, but it is worth it for other cards. Let's see, what else is in here that they're recommending that I am actually using. Not using any Planeswalkers, though I could use some Planeswalkers. I'm just not a big fan of Planeswalkers much. I am running a Field of Dead, though, because, well, it's a bit insane. Like, I'm not running anything to go and fetch it specifically, so if I get it, I just get it. Like, but it's really good when you do get it, because, like, especially in a 4-color deck, you're just like, oh, okay, yes, I have all the different named lands. Thank you. I will take a free zombie. Like, same thing with Valakut, Molten Pinnacle. Like, if you could find more ways to make all your stuff mountains, certainly, sure, go for it, dude. Like, ping everyone for life. Like, that's a very powerful thing to do. I understand why some people run it, but I was just like, no, please. Please no. Please no. Let's see, we're not running any mana rocks, are we? No, we don't need any mana rocks. And then we're just like going to go through some of the lands. I'm not even running Command Tower because I was just like, dude, I want to find like, I want to fetch lands. That's the thing. Like, I want to be able to find lands with all of my fetching cards, and things like that. So I don't want to run cards like Command Tower. You've got to be able to find your land. So I am running like Stomping Ground, Temple Garden, and a whole bunch of basics. And as I said, Evolving Wilds, Fabled Passages, things like that. But beyond that, Terramorphic Expanse and stuff like that, I'm running just like a lot of basics and things like that. So yeah, I'm not running any triumphs or anything. Like, I would like to run some triumphs maybe, but I don't like that they come in tapped. So that's just where I'm at with that. I just don't want them to come in tapped. Blighted Woodland's one of the few other ones, like the Glades and Cinderglade and whatever the other one is, the green-white one. That basically is the same thing I run, but again, like, yeah, it's tough to... Oh, yeah, Canopy Vista. Plus, I'm running some Snowlands because, of course, again, not Temple of Fosgod. Yeah, but Field of the Dead is a thing, so yeah. I was going to run more of these, like, lands, but I'm not, so even though they're cheap, so I don't know. I would love some OG duels, but I just don't have the money for them, so unfortunately that is pretty much it for the recommended stuff, like, that is in the deck. But as I said, I'm not running every single thing that's in the deck, and I'm just running a whole bunch of stuff that is like good green cards or good cards that work with what I want to do. If it says when something enters the battlefield, especially with creatures and things like that, because you make so many tokens, like, you are casting real spells still, yeah, sure, but you don't want to have to rely on just casting real spells or things that say when you cast a creature or whatever, because you're gonna be like generating so many tokens. Yes, sure, sometimes you don't want to draw 10 million cards for making 10 million Scoot Swarms, because then you'll just die, but most of the time you will want to draw 4 or 5, 6 or 7, 8 or 9, 10 or 11, things like this. You just want more gas all the time, so when you're making things, most of the time you are going to want to draw off of making those tokens. And like, when you get into these colors, yes, you do have those options, because like, they're there and they exist, so yeah, you do have some options. So it is well worth looking at, like, your options when you get into some of these things, because it can be like, oh yes, this card exists and like not many people are playing it, but it's really good for this strategy because, again, you're mostly making tokens, or at least I am, or the way I went with it was making tokens. So otherwise, I don't know how you'd really get so much card advantage in this deck beyond just, like, having more cheap cantrips and things like that, or whatnot. Maybe a lot of people make up for the fact that they don't have as much card draw with more tutors and things like that. Like, I consider Urban Evolution a cantrip, but it is a pretty decent cantrip. There's an instant speed version of Urban Evolution as well, which is really good. But I don't see hardly anyone playing it at all, which is just weird, because it's a way better effect that basically does the same thing, and I even think it's like 1 mana cheaper, so it's just insane. But I don't see anyone playing it. But anyway, there are effects that are like that, where it's just like, I know a whole bunch of these cards, and sometimes somebody will ask me, and like, I'll tell them, but like, I can't remember them all off the top of my head. But again, there's so many cards that people, like, some of these recommendation lists don't have, because not enough. Oh, this is the one, Echo's Monument. Yeah, that one's really good. It's in 60 612, 1612. How many is this one in? I'm just curious now. If the things will load. 4159. Wow. So this one is in a lot more decks, but it has been around for a long time. But if you're running Urban Evolution, I would cut it for the new this new Simic spell, because it's just so good. It's just instant speed, 1 mana cheaper, does the same thing. Yeah, so that's real good. But anyway, as I said, like there's just so many cards that are like I know of again that people just like, oh yeah, it's a card and it exists, but they don't consider how good it will be with their other synergies and whatnot. So, and again, like I'm focusing on like the token side aspect. So you can either go, okay, well I need things that say when they enter the battlefield or whatnot, or when I deal combat damage, probably, because those are the two probable easiest things that I can do within my deck. So, those are the things that I can have mostly control of. I find that the Oran Frostfang is the best effect of those ones because it gives your tokens death touch, and ain't no one want to block some 1/1 death touches because they're just like, dude, I'll lose my real shit to these random 1/1s, like, or whatever. So I'm just gonna take, oh shit, it's 50 damage. Oh, I'm dead. Okay, alright. So, like, things like this are just like things that will like mean you just like kill people and things like that, or that they've got to make bad blocks and just like lose their whole board and then nearly die anyway. So it's just like, well, bye you, and then you slam your extra turn Morag into play and just like kill them and then kill the other two people and whatnot and things like that. So like fun things like that happen sometimes or people don't know you've got it and then you just play it. Like you don't even need haste on this thing. You don't care. It's just like, oh cool, I need an extra combat. Okay, cool. I'll get an extra combat. Thank you very much, Mr. Morag. Things like that. It does happen from time to time. So anyway, that is mostly the stuff that's in the deck. It's not every single thing. I'll post a link to the finished, upgraded, or whatever deck that I've done, or updated deck that I've done in the description below. But hope you've enjoyed me, looking through some of the cards at least that are in the deck. I could actually take a look at the MTG list, but again, I haven't actually updated it completely, so I'm going to have to update it, which I will do for the finished list. But again, you'll find that in the description. You can, as I say, let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll be sure to try to respond to all comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about all these geeky things that we all love. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one, or I'll see you down there in the comments below. Hey, you've just finished watching one of our videos. A bunch of other videos are popping up on your screen now for you to check out, so why not check them out?